Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA Show!
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first episode of and new MMA Show. I am your host, Michael Hanson. I do all kinds of dazzling things with microphones. Chief among them, I am a ring announcer and MMA cage announcer. I am joined by my two friends who bring MMA punditry to new heights, Mark Priaulx and Omar Artola. Boys, how we doing?
What's up, boys? Been talking about it for a long time. We're finally doing it. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, I'm a little shaky right now. I'm like so hyped to get into this right now.
All right, well, gentlemen, there is no better time to start an MMA podcast than on the heels of a Conor McGregor card. UFC 264 is now in the books. It transpired last weekend. If you don't know what happened, if you're listening to this right now and you don't know what happened, then I assume that you want spoiler alerts. But Conor McGregor was defeated by Dustin Poirier at the end of the first round, TKO via doctor stoppage due to a horrific leg injury. A lot of leg injuries in the UFC lately from throwing those bones, man, bone on bone. So right at the top, Mark, I'll throw it to you first. What are your initial reactions to this main event fight, to Conor losing in such devastating fashion and sort of a freak injury, and your reaction on Poirier's performance as well?
So my main reaction is just obviously enormous buzzkill. So much hype, so much debate back and forth on what we thought might happen. People saying Conor's done. Is he not done? The whole deal. And we get nothing out of it. I mean, yes, Dustin won the fight, but he didn't beat Conor in a fight, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So to me, nothing was decided. Nothing was resolved. We didn't really get the answer that we were looking to get. And I don't want to take anything away from Dustin. Obviously, he won the first round. He was fighting a great fight, but you just kind of left wanting more because it feels like we didn't get to move on to the next chapter.
Omar?
Yeah, I kind of have to agree. I think, especially with the way that it ended, if at this point, especially with all the leg kicks that have been going on, Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman, that fight was messed up. I mean, that's a 1 in a million shot for it to be even the first shot of the entire night. But to Uriah Hall's credit, he checked the kick. That was on purpose. That feels more like a win than what happened in the Conor and Dustin fight, which was basically they both throw punches at the same time in that moment. Mm-hmm. Conor's actually lands, by the way. Yeah, Dustin's is not.
Conor's grazed him, yeah, for sure. Dustin missed.
And on the step back, his leg just gave out. And that was probably one of the most horrific things I've ever seen, but it wasn't really Dustin doing it. So,
of course, Dustin, in a sense, took some credit for it by saying that he felt something happened to Conor's shin on one of the early kicks that Conor threw. And Dustin said on one of the checks, I mean, from the little that I know about MMA striking, that didn't look like what I know for a check to be. But I mean, if Dustin Poirier says he checked the kick, then I kind of want to believe him.
So there are two different types of checks, right? There's one type of check that's used more in Muay Thai where your leg actually comes up, you stiffen your leg, and you take the shot, right? And you take the shot on your leg, it kind of leaves it more mobile, but you stiffen it so that when somebody hits you, it hurts them, right? Mm-hmm. The other way is you put your weight down on whatever leg is supposed to be getting hit, and you turn your leg outward so that
that's
the bones,
one that
right. So the bone is facing out. So when they kick it, they go, shin to shin.
That's what Uriah did to Weidman.
Basically, that's exactly
pretty much what Weidman did to Anderson. Those were the same kind of a check.
Correct. But also, it is not what happened in the check that Dustin was referring to.
Dustin seemed to kind of like lift up his leg a little bit and let Conor's kick kind of take his leg, but the kick did seem to land on the side of Dustin's knee, which is
Dustin must have Dustin must have thought he at least somewhat checked it because he did point as if he did something.
He did point, and he said that he pointed, and he did.
It still looked like it landed. So I don't know. It was a strange thing. And I love Dustin. We all love Dustin.
Yeah. If you don't like Dustin Poirier, then stop listening to this right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can love Conor McGregor and love Dustin Poirier. I mean, don't be an animal.
For sure.
You know?
And I get that Dustin wants to say that he did it. Just not sure that he did it. Especially, I know that Mike, you watched as well, Omar. I'm not sure if you did, but there was some breakdowns from doctors online analyzing that check, and it kind of seemed like unanimously that this did not happen here. So
I can tell you this. I train a little bit. I'm not a fighter. I'm not anything like that. But I've taken my fair share of leg kicks. I could show you the bruises on my legs right now, to be honest. I never thought that was from one check. Yeah. Damage like that to somebody's shin. First of all, shins don't just snap like that.
Right.
That's not normal.
Right.
Especially on a step back. Even if you're you roll your ankle, like rolling your ankle is a normal occurrence on a bad step back. Not snapping both bones in your leg.
Never have we seen a fighter throw a punch and then snap his shin by simply placing his weight back on his back
exactly
leg.
Which means already that his leg wasn't stable, so he never actually even stepped on his foot. His leg wasn't working as it was.
You could see it on the way back that it's already wobbly.
Yeah,
when he takes the leg back.
If we want to give proper criticism, I would say this. Conor McGregor knew that his leg was messed up to some extent. You had microfractures. You knew you had microfractures. Microfractures is part of the leg kicking game.
Right.
The part that it seems that he missed is letting the microfractures heal to allow your leg to get stronger. That's generally kind of how it's done. It's, I guess you really don't have that kind of flexibility when you're about to get into a fight and this guy's coming for your legs and so on and so forth, and you're Conor McGregor. You don't want to be played again. You don't want leg kicks to be the problem again. So you do all you can to prepare. But what he did seemed to really damage his leg, obviously, before he was even in there. And that kind of damage to just on a step back, I mean, his leg was destroyed then. There's no way Dustin did anything in that fight to cause that to happen. If Conor landed his kick on the knee, I mean, that's Conor's fault, frankly. But one kick on the knee doesn't snap you like that. Like there was something wrong with his leg way before that.
So did you see his comments today about the pre-existing injury?
Yes.
Right. So he put this video out today, and again, who knows 100% sure all this stuff, but to hear him say that, and he seemed very confident saying, ask Dana, ask the doctor, ask whoever, as if this was a known thing. So maybe it was. And if it was, it's easy to believe that because it would make everything that we saw make sense. Like there was no impact at any point in that fight that you can find. People were saying the elbow when he the front kick. There's other angles. He barely even touches Poirier's elbow. There is no impact that you can say this is where that happened. It doesn't make any sense unless there was something pre-existing. And to hear him say that, it's like, I think that's what it had to be.
Elbows will break people's feet. For the record, elbow will break somebody's foot for sure. You're not snapping somebody's leg in half with an elbow. Sorry.
Especially when it wasn't even clean contact. It was like
no, you definitely fracture somebody's foot with an elbow if they kick it, for sure.
Yeah. So in terms of whether or not this score is settled, a lot of people are spilling a lot of ink about Dustin's performance in the first round, and the fact that 2 out of the 3 judges scored this round 10-8 for Dustin Poirier. Omar, let me get your reaction on this first, because I mean, I know what my reaction is to that scoring. So 10-8 for Poirier.
So if I were to look at that fight and it wasn't Dustin Poirier and Conor McGregor, I'd be fine with the 10-8 round.
How do you mean?
Well, because I don't want to put any bias in the fight. You know what I mean? Conor McGregor was the guy that I was going for. I don't want to say it's not a 10-8 round because I was going for it. The reality is he was on the ground. Whether he took, or he says he didn't take a massive amount of damage or whatever the fact is, there were elbows raining down for like 2.5 minutes. And, granted, end of the round, we got there, or almost got there, and wanted to kind of see where that was going to go. And that's, as far as I was concerned, he lost the first round. I accepted he lost the first round. Conor McGregor has never been the type of person to give a shit whether he wins the round or not, though. Ever. Conor McGregor is like, I'm still here.
Totally.
You got to put me out for me to be out. So I was still on board. I was like, he lost the first round. Let's see what round 2 looks like. But we never really got there. So
do you think 10-8 was justified?
Yeah, I can't be mad at it, man. I really can't be mad at it. He beat the crap out of him while he was on the ground. Again, we can get into semantics as to whether, he landed cleanly, this, that, or the other. Conor had no real offense. He landed a couple of those bottom elbows, but, we've seen what somebody from the bottom has to do in order to even win a round.
Yeah.
And we're talking about nonstop Tony Ferguson elbows to the point where the person on top can't even move. That's not what happened. Conor McGregor was getting his ass handed to him for the last part of that round.
Mark, how did you score that round? And do you think 10-8 is justified?
I have multiple things I want to say in regards to this. And I don't want to come off like a Conor fanboy, but I feel like that's how I'm going to come off to some people. But I can't help it. The world right now is like fully anti-Conor, and it's OD, and it doesn't make sense. And I am here to set the world straight. Hey, 10-8, it's not the worst 10-8 I've ever heard. There's been a lot stupider turns. To me, that's not a 10-8. Short story as to why. Striking, Conor's landed a bunch of kicks. He lands a clean left that rattles Poirier. Poirier lands back, but my point is striking was at least even, if not advantage Conor. There was a bunch of calf kicks happening there. He has a tight guillotine. Now, he's Conor. We didn't think Conor was going to sub black belt Dustin Poirier. It doesn't mean he doesn't get credit for the tight guillotine that Poirier had to escape.
Yep.
Then on the ground, he had a barrage of like 5 elbows to the dome where Poirier jumped back and was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
He had an up kick that landed solid, if not a second up kick that landed solid. So, and he made Poirier work. Was Poirier landing bombs on him? 100%. Did Poirier clearly win the round? 100%. Poirier looked fantastic. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. It was a clear 10-9 round, not even a question. And until I saw Conor get up, again, nothing bounced Conor's head off the canvas per se, but I was wondering how hurt Conor might have been because it was a barrage that he was eating. So I take nothing away from Dustin. But now, if I may move to my second point on this, which is it seems as if everyone I speak to is like, well, Dustin won the first round, so foregone conclusion, Dustin was going to win the fight.
Oh, well.
Like, I can't take it. If you've ever watched MMA in your life, you're aware of how ridiculous of a take that is. Like, all we have to do is go back to Dustin Conor 2. Conor won the first round. How'd that work out for him? How about Conor Mendez, where Mendez has him on his ass, pounding away at him? How'd that work out for Mendez?
For a lot of the fight.
Yeah, a lot of
for the whole first round. I mean, if you wanted to say 10-8 round, that was probably the one to do it in, I guess.
Right. I mean, we can go super recent and go right back to Charles Oliveira, who looked like he was going to get finished by Chandler in the first round. Comes right back, night Chandler. I mean, this is what happens. This is the sport of MMA, and it's especially what happens when you have power like Conor McGregor has. So for people to act like this fight was somehow settled just because Poirier won a round, like he could have lost all 4 remaining rounds of the fight. He could have been knocked out in the first 30 seconds of round 2. Like, let's not pretend that Conor didn't jump right up looking fresh. He did not. So circling back to what I was about to say earlier, he did not look hurt. He did not look gassed. He didn't look anything. The man hopped right. It took him forever to get back to his feet. He was eating shots, but he got back to his feet, hopped right up, went right after Poirier. There was no deep breaths. There was no signs of being hurt in any way. I mean, it was a fight. We were going to sit down on the stools and we were going to go to round 2, and who knows what happens in round 2. So I can't take this theory that somehow Conor got exposed in this fight. I can't. And believe me, if Conor did look bad, say he gets finished in round 2, say he gets drubbed the whole fight, I'd be sitting here saying, you know what? We have to discuss if Conor is done fighting at the elite level. I'd be the first one to discuss it. But it's not the story that we watched unfold on Saturday night. We watched a man lose a round that was a competitive round, and then his leg snapped. So, again, nothing was resolved in that fight.
I think a factor that might have gone into the 10 of the 2 10-8s from those 2 judges was in real time. I thought that in those last 10 seconds that Dustin dropped Conor.
Yeah,
so a lot of people.
So did I.
Yeah.
So did I.
And
it wasn't until the replay that I saw that it was a complete miss from Dustin. Like Dustin didn't touch him. Period.
So just from experience, because at ringside when I announce, I'm often seated right next to a judge. Okay, the judges, maybe they are in the UFC, but for the most part, judges are sitting there just watching the fight, taking it in, and they have like a slip of paper, right? So the bell rings, and once the bell rings, they have gathered what they need to gather, and they pretty much, maybe they'll think for a moment, they pretty much turn the slip of paper over, take their pen, write the score, turn it back over, and that's it.
That's a great point.
So
because if that was a real drop, that 10-8 makes a lot more sense.
Right,
so
factoring in a knockdown in the last 10 seconds with the several minutes of ground and pound, then with the new scoring system, maybe 2 of those judges said 10-8. But I mean, so maybe the judges didn't realize that it was a leg break. I didn't realize it. Dustin didn't realize it. Conor went down with a shattered shin, and Dustin swarmed him like he maybe Dustin thought he knocked him down.
I mean, he might have swarmed him even if he did realize it, though.
Oh, really? You think so?
I don't know. The man was trying to make sure he won that fight because you got to factor in, to Conor's credit, like some people go down with injuries like that. Like Anderson Silva went down in 1 second. You knew, oh my God, this fight is over.
Yeah.
Weidman went down, writhing in pain, yelling. Conor went down, and for 5 seconds we were like, is he hurt?
What happened? Right.
What's happening? He wasn't yelling. He wasn't tapping. He wasn't, I mean, he was sitting there like, shit, my leg snapped. So it was a little bit of a weird moment where no one quite knew what was happening.
The one weird takeaway was Conor made Aljamain Sterling look like garbage. Like straight up garbage. Okay, this man, not only did this man not bitch about his broken leg, basically, he gave a full press conference with a broken leg.
Oh man.
Like, what? And Aljamain, he need me. He need me in the head. I can't get sick. And again, remember what I said. That shit is Peter Yan's fault. Don't get it twisted. Peter Yan caused all of that. It doesn't mean Aljo didn't milk the whole crap out of it, though.
So are you guys in agreement that Dustin Poirier did not beat Conor McGregor in a fight?
He beat him that way? Beat around.
If you put it that way, yeah, I would agree. I mean,
there's nothing about that fight that felt done. Nothing. That
a lot of people apparently feel different
because maybe they don't like Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor has been King Dick for the last 3 or 4 years. Right, people don't like him. The only reason I'm still on this train is because I started with the fighter that I enjoyed, like a dude that was for the people, like you know, all about Ireland. We'll get into that. He's on some other shit now. And it is very difficult to continue being a Conor McGregor fan, if we're being honest. But I still enjoy the way he fights, man. I enjoy the way he fights. I don't care for a lot of his antics nowadays, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it's just there still feels something wrong about abandoning ship right now. But I didn't feel bad for Dustin at all. Like, that was congrats to Dustin, man. Like,
hell yeah. Like 100%. Dustin looked fantastic. And Dustin is the best lightweight in the world right now. Like, he's not the champ, but resume wise, it's tough to argue he's not the number 1 lightweight in the world right now. Like, I'm taking nothing away from Dustin, and he couldn't have done his job any better than he did that night.
Yeah.
But even he knows he's not the one that finished that fight, is all I'm saying. So, we need the asterisks on there.
Right.
Like, to me, I think we talked about this, but to me, there needs to be some type of threshold where we decide if something gets labeled as a no contest. Because to me, that's what that was. Like, the fight was not like Omar said. If it was a kick that Dustin checked, then Dustin caused it. So I'm totally fine with him being the winner. It wasn't. It was a freak injury. So to me, that's more of a no contest.
Yeah. I think another way of putting your question mark from before is, were these 5 minutes, forgetting the leg break, in terms of the fighting that was going on during those 5 minutes, was it enough to reach some kind of conclusion, combining it with the fight that happened in January, to say that Dustin is better than Conor?
Not for me, simply because I don't hold the fight in January in that regard, because I don't think that was like, I mean, that's a whole other can of worms that I can delve into right now. But to me, that was not MMA Conor. There was a lot going on. He was training almost primarily boxing. He wasn't even throwing kicks. His stance was wholly different. There was a lot different. So I can't just say, let's combine that in this and Dustin's better. I mean, you ask me who's the better fighter right now, the answer is Dustin. But it's an opinion.
Just the information we have to work with.
It's not a confirmed occurrence.
I mean, Dustin confessed yet again in this fight, like he did in the second fight. He confessed afterwards that Conor dinged him. He caught him with the left that Dustin didn't see, and it stung him. But his legs were still there. I mean, I love Dustin's candidness and his honesty after fights, which is something that we don't get from Conor.
We used to get it from Conor all the time.
That's exactly my point.
That's the Conor we love.
Conor used to be 100% candid about everything.
He was as good as you can get as a loser post fight.
Totally.
It was after the Eddie Alvarez fight. That boy was never the same.
The Khabib loss was the first loss, which I get. There was so much heat and darkness in that one that part of me was like, I get it that he's not like really conceding this, because they wanted to literally kill each other.
Right.
Then the last Dustin loss, he was Mr. Nice Guy again. Everything was fine. This one, as you mentioned, I hated his behavior. I'm so sick of the bringing Dustin's wife into it. We don't need it. I will say that Dustin rubbed me wrong a little bit too, by the fact that he was celebrating and doing the Conor walk around the octagon over a dude that just snapped his leg. I was like, I'm not sure that's what we should be doing right now. So I get if that's what set Conor off. I'm not trying to excuse it. No matter what set Conor off, it was way too far. But
I mean, I as far as that part, I can't, whatever specifically goes on between Dustin and Conor and them drawing back in each other, at this point, I can't blame Dustin for none of it. Dustin should be drop kicking McGregor in his sleep at this point. I mean, let's be real. Anybody said anything like that about any one of our wives, we'd be going to the mattresses 100%.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? And to Dustin's credit, he never crossed that line. He kept it professional. He might have been a little bit of a dick to rub it in McGregor's face. I can't say I wouldn't have done the same in a similar situation. You know what I mean? Like, he literally sat there and said, your wife is in my DMs with a broken leg. How do you not take a baseball bat to Conor McGregor?
There was a promo back in the day in the WWE where Steve Austin dressed up as a nurse to attack Vince McMahon in the hospital.
Oh my God.
Reminds me of this.
Oh, I know that one, dude. Yeah.
Did you see that they superimposed their faces?
Whose?
So that scene that you're talking about.
Oh my God, no way.
Conor
Really?
McGregor's face and Dustin Poirier's face. So you can see Dustin Poirier slamming his fist on Conor McGregor's leg.
Of course. Oh my God.
I love that you referenced that without even knowing.
Yeah, right? Okay, I think maybe we should turn away from Conor Dustin 3 unless we have any final
Can I
words
throw
about
one more little point out
Yeah,
there?
yeah.
This is just a feeling I had today. So, did you guys watch the whole video that Conor put out? It was like 6 minutes long.
Oh, when he was
rolling
on
around
his little rascal?
Yes. So
Yes, yes, I did.
this video. So first, this video was old Conor, the Conor that people fell in love with in the first place.
I hear you. Yeah.
So he's that guy. He's like giving you his emotions, telling you what he's going through. You know, he does the big smile at the end and the throwback to the da 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 from the bike video, like great throwback. Does the whole deal, right? He's the Conor that was magnetic.
For sure.
People couldn't resist. That's who he was in that video. And I finished that video and I had this feeling of like, so right now Conor is at his lowest. Like you scroll social media, you find a Conor post, unless it's Conor McGregor's actual account, I'm saying anyone else, every post is like, fuck this guy, Conor's the worst, retire, blah, 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 right? I finished that video and I kind of had this feeling of like, if this is what he does through this recovery, like if he gives people these windows into his life all recovery long and becomes the sympathetic figure and shows you the trials and tribulations that he's dealing with and how it's affecting him mentally, and he stays positive and has this attitude, I could absolutely see a reality where he documents this recovery to a point where he comes out as the sympathetic figure and everyone is like, let's go Conor. Like, I want to see if he can be the man again. Like I didn't really see an avenue where he could just go back to being that guy. And for whatever reason, at the close of that video, I was like, that's it. Like I could see that happening. Not saying he deserves it. Like after these wife comments, not saying anything. I could just see that being the route we take.
I think reports of Conor being washed are greatly exaggerated. I think Conor was definitely in this first round. He was in the fight, man. He was in the second fight.
Yeah, and, I just meant in terms of fan love.
No, totally agree. Totally agree.
But yeah, the man is not washed. The only thing he maybe is not going to win a title anymore. But washed is a wildly extreme term.
So other than sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll shut up.
I was just gonna say, I honestly think he keeps getting in his own way. Like he keeps doing all this shit to himself with talking all this like the mind games only work if it's legit. His mind games haven't been legit in years. It was legit when the man was making no money and he had to literally beat the shit out of somebody for 60 grand. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that was a different animal, frankly. And I think he's been doing it or still doing it because I think it's what's expected of him. When to be honest, I would much rather see the man just evolve. If he's not that same dude anymore, don't try to be the same dude. You come off ridiculous at this point.
I thought the Conor that was in McGregor Poirier 2 was this next evolved Conor. He was like mogul Conor, who was like, I'm too rich to get that upset anymore.
He felt like it did kind of feel like something was missing mentally from that Conor, though. Like he didn't feel
they were too nice
to me.
They were too nice.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to tell the guy what he needs to do, but
my last point, Conor McGregor returns winter 2022. Mark it down. Your boy said it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds accurate.
Awesome. Well, let's go march down the rest of this card, UFC 264. And the co-main event, Gilbert Burns defeated Stephen Wonderboy Thompson via unanimous decision. All three judges gave Burns 29-28. Omar, I'll start with you. What is your reaction to Burns winning this fight in the way that he did?
I mean, it wasn't the most exciting fight as people seem to kind of be talking about, but I thought it was an impressive fight. I thought it was an uberly impressive fight, to be honest. People don't take Wonderboy down. It just doesn't happen. And the fact that Burns was able to do that multiple times and also keep him on the ground for the most part was super impressive. Wonderboy didn't really seem to have a lot of answers, which is also a rarity. Wonderboy's been caught obviously before, but it's very rare for Wonderboy to not know where to go next, for him to almost kind of be out chest.
Sure.
That doesn't really happen. And I think Burns got him to that point where he really didn't know what to do. And I think it was the jiu-jitsu that made the difference. I could see why you don't want to watch that fight again. I'll give you that.
Sure.
But to say that that wasn't a great performance, I think is a little unfair. I think that dude definitely earned that win 100%. And an earned win over Wonderboy Thompson is a hell of a feather to have in your cap.
Mark, where do you think Burns goes from here?
It feels like, see, it's so hard at welterweight because we still have no clarity at the top. Like, is Colby going to fight Usman? It's sounding like it more and more. I even saw Ali say the other day that he feels like that is the fight. So if he's saying that, I feel like it's probably going to happen. But then what's happening below that? Like, is Leon going to wait? Are we going to do Leon Jorge? Because if Leon Jorge is on the table, I think Burns is going to have to take a back seat because everyone wants to see Leon Jorge.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough. If that fight is not happening, I think Burns should be fighting one of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
If it is happening, Burns is probably going to have to wait a second and maybe see how, if someone comes up, how other fights play out. Chiesa, Luque. I mean, I don't think he's going to fight Luque. I don't actually know if they would fight each other. I just know they're boys and they train together. But if Chiesa is the winner, maybe he has to go there. I mean, he probably wouldn't be thrilled about it, but it just seems like there's not exactly a clear step for him at this point. But in terms of the fight, if I may, Omar took the words out of my mouth pretty much, but it was not a memorable fight, but it was a very memorable statement from Gilbert Burns.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do we see someone get inside on Wonderboy the way that he did? How often do we see someone take Wonderboy down the way that he did? To Wonderboy's credit, Burns could not get much going with his submission game, but he controlled Wonderboy the entire fight. And to be able to do that, to get inside that range, to take him down, to not get, I mean, he never even got clipped, really.
Yeah.
It was a super clean fight. And no, I can't think of anyone that has done that. Like, what, even Woodley beat one was a draw, but got past Wonderboy twice. He fought a totally different style. He made Wonderboy come to him. He did it in spurts and lunges. No one has said, I'm going to walk at this man and I'm going to get inside his range and do what I need to do. I haven't seen anyone do that. So I was super impressed by Gilbert Burns. And I was already a Gilbert Burns guy. And I left that fight saying, this guy's even better than I thought.
Nice. Okay, marching further down this card, Tai Tuivasa defeated Greg Hardy. The Prince of Darkness went to sleep via knockout in the first round, right about at the 1 minute mark. Mark, I'll stay with you. Do we think that Greg Hardy has anywhere else to go in the UFC? Or do we think that he's sort of like hit his limit?
It's hard. I don't want to give Greg Hardy any credit, but I guess he deserves some. I mean, he's 4-4. When he's gotten his bigger chances, he has fallen flat. I mean, I shouldn't say fallen flat. Like Volkov beat him the whole fight, but he hung with Volkov, so I guess that's not falling flat. But here he did. Is there a place for him in the UFC? Can he go past the level that he's at? I would probably still say yes. I'm not saying I think it's going to happen, but I think it's possible. He has shown the signs. Yeah. He has the athleticism, obviously. He has the power. He seems to be really committed and willing to work. When you hear him talk, he is really like living the life. Like, he's not one of these guys that kind of just came over and was like, let me see what I can do. I'm a huge guy. He is really committed to being better. So it wouldn't shock me. Does the UFC cut him right now? Like, that wouldn't shock me either.
Right.
But just because of the negative press and if that kind of, I could see them be like, all right, you know what? This didn't quite work out. See you later. But if he does get to hang around, I could see him put it together to a higher level than he has right now. I don't think he's going to be, a top 10 fighter. But I think, I mean, maybe he could nip it, but I think he could be somewhat better than he is right now.
Omar, what's your reaction?
I think heavyweight is so volatile that anybody kind of has the opportunity to kind of jump all the way up if they really train. And to Mark's credit, Dan Hardy or Dan, is that it? That's not
Greg.
Dan Hardy. Greg Hardy.
Gregory.
Greg Hardy has been working, and he's been working nonstop, and he's been working pretty steadily, and you can see his improvements even through the fights that he's had in the UFC. I don't see the UFC cutting him, to be honest. He's been an investment. I think they kind of know that there's a lot of organizations that probably aren't going to touch him at this point, just because of who he is and the baggage that comes with him. I think if they were going to cut him based off of press and bad negativity, off of him, they never would have signed him. They know what they were getting themselves into when they signed him, and I don't think that's going to be a factor when it comes to that decision. I think if Greg Hardy starts losing to the point where like people aren't watching him, or he's got 4 wins and 8 losses, then we're not at that point. I don't think the UFC is doing anybody any favors by keeping him around. You're just going to ruin his record, and we're just going to keep watching people. Well, watching Greg Hardy lose is probably not terrible, but it wouldn't work out for him as well. I will say Ty hit him with a nasty shot, because I'm pretty sure that broke his eye. I'm pretty sure his orbital bone is broken.
He shut down immediately. Like that
he went off, hit the off switch.
Like, nope, that's the end of me.
Yeah.
By the time he got up, his eye was closed completely. His eye was 100% closed, and that's what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure he broke his whole face. So somebody somewhere is thanking Tai Tuivasa for doing that one for us, because that needed to happen at least once.
I mean, to give Tuivasa, to give Greg Hardy some credit, he did catch Tai Tuivasa. He rocked him first.
Had him on deer legs, 100%.
He then kind of got, I guess, overexcited, and he ran into straight line right at Tai Tuivasa. But I think the guy has to come away with some credit.
I love the Tuivasa quote at the end of the fight when he was like, I'm not going to try to do the accent, but when he was like, he said he wanted to bang with me. I'm not the right guy to bang with. Find another bloke. Just something about bloke in there. Just perfect. And it's exactly what happened. Like he thought he could bang with Tai Tuivasa, and Tai Tuivasa ate the shot much better than he expected. And that was the end of him. I will say, just going back to Hardy's record, et cetera, his record he's tough to evaluate because he had the DQ. He had the no contest. His wins, none of them are noteworthy. Like, they're all outside the top, I would say 25. So he hasn't had a win where you're like, well, he was able to beat this legit guy. And then his losses are all to legit dudes. It's Tybura, and Volkov.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, he can beat down here. He can't beat up here. He's got DQs. He's got no contest. So he could be still like, better than we realize, because his losses have been to beasts. So I think I think the book is still out on him.
Okay.
I don't think there's anybody at heavyweight as an entirety that he can't really beat eventually. Once we start getting to the top 5, I think is kind of where it'll probably get really hairy for him. But the man's got power. You know what I mean? If he learns to relax when he rocks somebody and be measured, and those are all things you can teach that kid. And I think he can be a top 10 easily. Top 5 going into champion. Like, do I think he has the ability to beat Francis Ngannou? Probably not.
Right.
Probably
but
not.
I think you made a great point, though, that at heavyweight is unique among divisions, that if even a guy like a Greg Hardy, if he strings together, let's say 3 knockout wins, suddenly I think we're going to hear Greg Hardy's name in some pretty big fights.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the heavyweight division UFC.
It's not.
Look at Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou came, from Africa, didn't really have a ton of MMA experience. We literally watched him evolve in the UFC. And all that man came in with was 2 sledgehammers in his hands. And that got him away with wrestlers that were supposed to be able to take him down and keep him down. Those dudes are dead. Like strikers that went in there with them, those guys are gone. You know, it wasn't until Stipe put on a clinic of technique that we were like, oh, Francis really isn't that good right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he still has, there's still a serious gap that's there. And, you know, to Mark's credit, you knew that Ngannou had closed that gap during the second Stipe fight. I wasn't as sure. You know, I really thought that, you know, you're talking about years, almost a lifetime worth of wrestling experience that you're asking Ngannou to catch up with. And I guess I was expecting too much from him because at the end of the day, all you really needed to do wasn't take Stipe down, was stop Stipe from taking you down, which probably doesn't require as much skill to know as taking somebody down, controlling them, and so on and so forth. So it was amazing to see, but heavyweight's crazy, man. It can go either way at any time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. All right. In the interest of time, let's continue marching down this card. I'm just going to reference Irene Aldana defeating Yana Kunitskaya by TKO in the first round. But I think in the interest of time, let's go on to another sort of unicorn fight on this card. Sean O'Malley defeats Chris Moutinho via TKO, via punches in round number 3 at almost the very end of the fight at 4 minutes and 33 seconds of round number 3. Omar, let's talk about first Chris Moutinho. What is your reaction? What is your take on this kid?
All right. So first things first, credit where credit is due. That might be one of the toughest sons of bitches I have ever seen in my entire life. Like in movies, even I've seen people not as tough as that kid, right? Like there's no question that kid is made of heart, toughness, will, all the things you'd want to see in a fighter. 100%. That's literally where it ends. Mm-hmm. And I think I want to give the kid credit for stepping in, right? Kid, he deserves credit for stepping up on such a crazy occasion. The lights that were on him, the opponent that he was given, it's a tall order for anybody, frankly, especially coming into the UFC as your debut. I'm glad that kid got a payday that's going to change his life, because that made that fight to a certain extent worth it for him, right? Where it bothers me is that was straight up abuse, right? That wasn't a fight. That was a punching bag with gloves on. It was not a fight. I don't even know what the fight metric is. We all know what Sean O'Malley did. You know, he landed over 200 strikes in the 80th percentile. He beat the hell out of him, right? He probably took years off of that kid's life at this point, realistically, right? How many punches did this kid even throw back or land back? We're talking about a fraction of what O'Malley hit him with. That fight should have been stopped like 2 rounds before it did. I kind of felt at where it got stopped. Even I felt when it happened, like, bro, you let it go this far. Let him finish. You know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is Sean O'Malley, you know, he's kind of arrogant, right? He's confident, and it boils over into arrogance sometimes, things like that. But there was a bit of truth to what he said in the fact that there were 30 seconds left. In 30 seconds, that kid could have been seriously injured, permanently injured.
Well, the reason why Herb Dean finally stepped in is because O'Malley, you know, was really starting to lay into him
and pick it up. Yeah, and I mean, the reality is at no point in that fight was Montano giving him. That's not how you pronounce his name. That's Moutinho. That was the other girl. At no point was that man giving Sean O'Malley any issues, right? I think the biggest else was O'Malley like, so what am I supposed to hit him with at this point? Like, I can keep hitting him, but I'm not really sure what else I'm supposed to do here. And you could see he was gassing. Yeah, he was gassing from beating this guy to a pulp.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
To give the credit to Moutinho was walking him down though for a lot of that fight.
That's great. But he threw nothing. He landed nothing. He did nothing.
You know,
O'Malley was too slippery.
You know what's insane to think about that I never thought about till right now? It was one of the worst beatings we've ever seen. Yet I wonder what would have happened if it was a 5-round fight.
What do you mean?
Like O'Malley was getting tired of beating him up. Like, I'm curious how tired he actually would have gotten. I think he would have been fine, but like, I wonder. Like, he was noticeably like getting tired.
Yeah, and I think too
was not stopping.
And O'Malley, you could see O'Malley's game plan change somewhere in the second round, because O'Malley was throwing all kinds of crazy shit in the first round, kicks and all kinds of stuff.
He was
once he realized that dude wasn't going away, the kicks kind of stopped, because that takes way more energy out of you than throwing punches.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure O'Malley realized this kid's not really doing much and he's not really blocking very well. I'm just going to spend my night throwing 1-2s, 1-2-3s, boxing him up for the most part. And it worked. You know what I mean? He was able to manage his gas properly. He took a couple of deep breaths, which, you know, look, anybody who thinks that isn't difficult, I challenge you to throw, just without any weights, just throw punches for 5 minutes straight and see where you're at at the end of that.
2.
Yeah. So, you know, it was a great performance on O'Malley's part, but, you know, bricks don't hit back. Let's put it like that.
Hey, Mark, I want to get your side on this debate, a topic of debate. There's 27 seconds left in the round, and do you fall more on the side of it is sort of a sign of respect towards Moutinho to let him go out on his shield?
Yeah.
Or is it more of a respect for Moutinho to save him? So which side do you fall on?
To me, you can't stop that fight.
You can't.
Wow, you can't stop that fight. Let's clarify. You can stop that fight significantly sooner. Like, you could have stopped that fight whenever you fucking wanted. You can't stop it when you let the guy make it to the 30-second mark. It's just, I mean, that's how it works. It was one of the most, I don't know if it was one of the worst beatings, because like the guy wasn't getting hurt, but I've never seen someone get hit cleanly in the face so many times in my entire life of watching MMA. First of all, how good is Sean O'Malley? He's so friggin' smooth and clean. Who lands over 80% of strikes? Insanity. But the fact that a guy who is a one-hitter quitter like O'Malley is was landing like that on this dude, and he was not even really acting like as if he was in danger. Like, he was just kind of like, got me. All right. Like, I mean, which is why I understand how Herb got to the point that he got to.
Right.
Because I would say earlier, like, I don't remember the exact minutes, but halfway through the first, latter part of the first, there were real chances to be like, all right, too much. I'm not
wave
going
it
to
off. Right, wave it off.
When we got past that, and O'Malley realized that it wasn't just going to be the next shot that put this guy away, and kind of started trying to land more than he was trying to one-shot him. The fight changed a little bit, in that, as much as it still felt like, man, this could stop, there was not like a moment where Herb could have been like, okay, like, that was a huge wobble. That was he dropped there. Oh, his legs gave out there. Like, we weren't getting those. It was just like, damn, he hit him super clean again, and the dude is still walking forward. So there wasn't, I think Herb was probably like, you know, at some next minute here, I'm going to have this moment where I can be like, okay, enough. And it just wasn't coming. So I get why it got as long as it did. But then once you're there, you got to have some awareness of the situation. If the dude lasted all that time, he was making it 27 more seconds. Just let the guy get what he earned.
But what if in those 27 seconds, O'Malley hit him with another 20 punches to the head? I mean, I don't think the referee's supposed to factor in the clock.
So this is kind of my thing.
Minutes, right? It's different than 27 seconds.
you guys know that I want to be a referee. That's kind of my aspiration. And these are kind of those moments where I think to myself, like, what's important, what is your job as a referee? At the end of the day, it's to protect the fighter. You know what I mean? It's not to make the show look great. It's not to please the fans. It's not to make the bookies happy. At the end of the day, it's to protect the fighter. And we can debate whether Herb should have stopped it sooner or later or any of that stuff, but that fight needed to be stopped, man. That fight shouldn't have even gotten to that point, period. Like, it, with 27 seconds left, literally one bad shot, kid's done. And it's not like that kid hadn't taken hundreds of shots up until that point. So it wasn't even like, he was taking a few more punches and things like that. In the moment, I was thinking to myself, at least wait until the kid gets knocked down. A knockdown, don't even let him follow up. As soon as he drops on the floor, we're done. We're done.
Yeah, it didn't even have to be a knockdown. If he ever even got wobbly, I would have been like, all right, get in there.
But I can also tell you.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but I can also tell you that being the third person in that octagon and seeing all the damage that kid had taken up until that point, Herb's got to make sure that nothing happens to this kid, because if it does, it's on Herb.
Agree. Totally agree. But imagine being this kid, lasting that long, and you are throwing a punch as Herb grabs you and says, you're done fighting. And he's like,
but we've seen
throwing punches right now.
Right.
We've seen zombie punches, and we've also, and I can tell you right now, that kid was on instinct for most of that fight. There was no thinking in that fight. That boy switched on autopilot and was just going forward, which is why there wasn't a lot of.
He was laughing. He was talking a little bit in there. He didn't seem like he was out of it.
There was no strategy that was there, right? He was going forward. He was, as far as I'm concerned, he was purely on instinct. I'm not saying he was out on his feet, but I'm saying there was no thought process involved there, right? O'Malley kind of had a thought process. He knew what was going on, dribbling all kinds of crazy shit. There's a level of awareness that O'Malley had that by that point, this kid didn't have anymore. You know what I mean?
I think his thought process was, I have to walk forward no matter what and be on him and hope he gets tired or slips up. I think he was doing exactly what his game plan was.
Yeah, I can't be mad at the stoppage. Just, it sucks that it stopped there, but I frankly think it should have been stopped earlier. So
do I. And let me take a little step back here. We're hyper focused on this small issue of that. Some of us, me, feel like this kid deserved to see the bell. In the grand scheme of things, the kid got his ass whipped. Yeah. So whether he lost the decision or he got finished or what, I mean, he got his ass whipped. Like, it's not like he's some noteworthy, like, man, he could have really moved up the right. Like, no, he got his ass whipped. So,
right. And that's what I'm talking about. Like, people are making him out to be like the next greatest thing when, like, he did nothing.
Yeah.
And as Herb Dean, like, in the grand scheme of things, what did he really lose not making it to the bell? Let's really think about it. He got his bonus money.
Felt to make it to the bell. That's it.
He got his bonus money. He got paid. He got respect from the entire world and then some. Sean O'Malley shouted him out as the baddest motherfucker he's ever fought. Like, what did he lose? Herb Dean, as far as I'm concerned, saved his life potentially and lost nothing in return. Making him go to the end of the bell could have been a lot worse for his entire life than having it stop there and still getting all the recognition and accolades he would have gotten, because he wasn't winning the fight regardless.
And probably even more notoriety because the stoppage has stirred up this controversy that we're talking about now.
Herb Dean's like, blame me, that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm good with it. And I respect that. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's not about Herb being, on the fan favorite. He's not Yamasaki, right? Like, if this was Yamasaki, that kid's probably dead. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not coming out of there proper.
See, but that's the thing, Mark, is that the very thing that Yamasaki got such heat for was letting guys go out on their shield a few times, right?
So, I mean, I don't want to me, in order to stop a fight, generally speaking, in a fight, I gotta know that the guy is in huge trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Here, he was in a lot of trouble the whole time. But when the fight got stopped, he was returning punches.
Right.
Not seeming hurt, it was just a super strange time to stop the fight is all I'm saying.
Okay.
If there was one clean shot where he even went just like that and bounced right back, stop it. Fine. Enough. It's just not it didn't happen.
I just love that the two sides of this debate are arguing such different things at the same time. You know, one half is like, you got to let him finish. You got to let him finish. And the other side of this is saying it should have been stopped sooner. So
And yet,
it's like,
and
how
yet
can both of those things exist at the same time?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, both sides are like, this kid still got his ass kicked, whether it was sooner or not. It's just, you know.
Yeah, we're talking about him. Okay, anything else from the prelims of this card that we want to touch on?
I think
Max Griffin, Carlos Condit. Or do we want to march on and look ahead to next weekend?
No, Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall.
Ryan Hall.
I kind of wanted to touch on. Yeah. So Ryan Hall finally got the L on his record in the craziest of ways. I mean, he was doing his roly, and your boy got caught and got hammer fisted into the graveyard. Turns out his hand broke on the first punch. And so he was basically fighting with one hand. And I can tell you, as grappling with a broken hand, not going to happen. It's a terrible, terrible thing to happen to a person who is primarily a grappler. Yeah. A broken hand, you close your fist, the shit is numb, probably hurts when you throw it, but like you can kind of get away with it.
It's also with a broken hand for a striker.
100%, but you can't grip with a broken hand. Like gripping properly with a broken hand is not going to happen. And grappling is all about the actual grip, wrists and all this other nonsense. And I think it took Ryan right out of his game, and he ended up in a weird position trying to do some weird shit.
Yeah, he did. I tell you what, in my mind, I always kind of figured that when Ryan Hall lost, that's what it would look like.
Oh, for sure.
Because when you're Ryan Hall and you do Ryan Hall things and they don't work, that is how you look. Like, you look silly and you probably get pounded into the mat. And like, it's exactly what happened.
Let's give credit to what credit is due, though, because not even former middleweight champion Chris Weidman can throw a spinning heel hook kick the way that Ryan Hall did, because that spinning kick was nasty. Nasty.
Yeah.
So
I want to give credit
one
to
thing
Poirier
that came out of there.
So Poirier might be a name to watch. He looks
good.
And he's a black belt, and he's an athlete. I mean,
that was one of the biggest takeaways too, was the fact that he wasn't worried about going to the ground with Ryan.
Right.
Like, there, people like, who's this dude? Gray Maynard. Gray Maynard fought Ryan Hall like if he had bug spray on him. Like, didn't want to touch him, was like arguing with the referee, like what is he doing? Telling him to fight me. Like, it was the weirdest thing I'd ever seen. But Poirier was like, I'll go down there. You want to go down there? I'll go down there. I'll kill you. I'll go down there.
And not only that, but he took every proper step. Like, it's funny, especially I'm assuming for people who don't watch MMA as much, to watch Ryan Hall fight and the roles that he's doing and everything. But it's easy to get caught in those, as we've seen. And so Poirier was never even close. He took every proper step, every proper move. He was never in danger at all.
Yeah.
Sure.
Ryan Hall is not somebody to play that game with, because that boy, to his credit, those roles work because of how efficient he is in his submission game. Once he grabs your leg, there is none of this setup and this and that. That boy grabs your leg and he takes it with him in the same moment. It's done. And Poirier didn't let him do it, and it was very impressive.
I just want to say, Carlos Condit, I love you. You're one of my all-time favorite fighters. I don't care how many decisions you lose late in your career. I'll always ride with you.
Dude, some of the old magic was there at times.
Yeah, he was good.
Just is way too hittable now. Like, he hits so much. He has zero head movement.
so part of it seems to be his style, right? His style has always been a very unique style. He's always been a guy who needs to be on the inside because of his elbows and the range that he generally fights at. But
Yeah.
he seems so slow.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's always been like that, and I never noticed because of maybe the competition that there was back then or what, but like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, like he couldn't.
He's always been a little bit slow. It is something I've always felt about him. He feels methodical.
He's never had the fastest like hand speed or athleticism in the division.
No.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it just was more prominent in this fight because of how fast Max Griffin is, but
yeah,
he looked visibly slower and sluggish compared to Max Griffin. And I honestly, I just think it cost him in that fight.
So another guy that I thought looked sluggish, which was even weirder to me, was Nico Price. Like,
oh yes,
I almost 100%. Want to go back and watch other Nico Price fights because in my mind, I'm like, this guy is a buzzsaw. But I'm like, am I not remembering correctly? Like, is he fighting other slow dudes? And that's why, because he was, and Priaulx is fast. But he was so, like, his punches were taking a year to get to the target. I was very thrown off by that. And then once Pereira got tired late, Price started to turn it up. But even then, I just felt like the speed was not there. And he fought a good fight. He won the last round. He made it interesting. But I feel like that guy has been a buzzsaw of violence at times, and it was not happening on Saturday night.
Yeah, Nico is always the crazy guy in the cage. And maybe he thought, I'm going in there with a guy who's crazier than I am, a guy who literally just does cartwheels, not like a cartwheel kick, just cartwheels. So maybe he thought that he was going to take a different approach with this one. But you're right, it was weird to see Nico Price fight that way.
Yeah. And Pereira, to his credit, the dude keeps winning. Like he's probably nearly ranked at this point. Like Nico Price is a good win.
For sure.
But man, is that guy's cardio an issue. I mean, he has no chance of fighting a 5-rounder. Granted, we're
so big at 170.
5-rounders right now.
So big.
But the dude, if he doesn't win the first 2 rounds, he's losing the fight. He cannot win round 3.
Yeah.
He also wasn't even throwing anything crazy. Like he wasn't even being his normal self, where he was doing all kinds of backflips, this, then the third. And that's usually, or at least in my head, what was usually causing all those cardio issues, because he's doing all this extra shit that you don't need to be doing in a fight.
Right.
He didn't even do that in this fight, and he's still gassed.
Right.
Yeah.
So now I just think
stayed on him. He definitely tried to keep the pressure on him and make him back up, but yeah.
It would be interesting to see Pereira give it a go at middleweight, because he's so big at 170.
Oh, he's huge.
Is he going to be big at 185 though? Because he seems like he's going to be on the smaller side against the top guys. Like Izzy's going to tower over it.
I don't know. I don't know how much he cuts,
or
if I'm sure he cuts a ton to make 170, but he's tall. He is tall.
They said he was over 200 in the cage.
Yeah, and he's certainly tall enough for middleweight. He's not he won't be short at middleweight, and he is jacked. So we'll see. But I think we can put 264 in the books as far as we're concerned on this podcast. But let us, for the final segment here, let us look ahead to this coming weekend, the coming card, UFC on ESPN, Makhachev versus Moisés. Let's just go once again right down this card and talk about the main event first. Islam Makhachev versus Thiago Moisés. Mark, I'll start with you again. What's your take on this fight? And who's your early pick?
It's a solid fight. I have no issue with the fight. I like Moisés. He's been hot. He is a significantly better fighter than I thought he was early on in his UFC career. Mm-hmm. So I'm fine with the fight. It's an intriguing fight. It's got angles that make it interesting. But if Islam wins this fight, enough of these fights. Like, enough. We don't need more Drew Dobers. We don't need more Thiago Moisés's. Like, let's fight someone real. The guy has won 80,000 in a row. Like, let's go.
Right.
So on that note, it should still be an interesting fight. The Islam's a huge favorite. I think when I last looked, I think he was minus 550 and Moisés was plus 375. So, super lopsided. but it's hard not to pick Islam. He's so dominant. Moisés, a lot of his game is reliant on his variety. Like his striking is solid, but if he can't take you down, which I'm assuming he is not going to be able to do with Islam, his game becomes very limited because he relies on that mix where you don't know if he's going to shoot, he's going to strike. His BJJ is solid. So without that, if he's just forced to strike with Islam or fight off his own back once he's taken down, which I assume is also happening, I don't think he's as dangerous of a fighter. So while Islam does still potentially have his faults or things you could point out against a different level of competition, I don't think there's going to be much that stops him from imposing his typical game plan on Saturday.
Omar, what do you think is the path to victory for Moisés?
I think, to Mark's credit, that's kind of where the impasse comes. You know, I think his ability to mix it up and be able to take it down to the ground, be able to control the people on the ground, is kind of necessary for his overall game plan. His strikes only work generally because of his takedowns, because people generally have to worry about those takedowns. Again, to Mark's point, I don't think he's going to be able to do that kind of stuff with Islam. I think Islam is pretty well-rounded everywhere. I think he's kind of shown that his striking, when people like to compare him to Khabib, his striking is on a different level. You know what I mean? His striking is where he started. And the wrestling is kind of what he's starting to pick up now, and he's picking it up from the right people. So I think if this was Khabib, I would say there's 100% no chance it's going to happen. I think because it's Islam, I would say there's a less likely chance it's going to happen, but there's a possibility there. He's not Khabib.
For sure. Yeah.
He does sound really confident. I was listening to him earlier today, and he really felt like he had it figured out how he needs to attack Islam. Like, a main point that he kept making was that people give him too much respect and don't go after him, and they allow him to kind of dictate how the fight takes place and where it takes place, and that he thinks you need to just go after him and throw him off his own game. And he seemed like he really believed that he had the answer of how to attack Islam. So, who knows? I can't see it. I can't see the fight taking place where he manages to simply keep it a striking match with as good as Islam's wrestling is. And I can't see him more than maybe one trip, who knows what, getting Islam to the mat. So I don't know what the avenue would be.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the co-main event, a fight with a fighter that has the MMA sort of buzzing a little bit, although not too much. I think it's a little bit under the radar.
I think so too. I'm surprised it's not more.
Yeah.
It is upsetting.
Yeah. Coming out of retirement, former UFC women's bantamweight champion Miesha Cupcake Tate comes in the blue corner against Marion Renault, again in the women's bantamweight division. Omar, let me start with you. What is your reaction? Miesha Tate, she had the belt. She lost it in devastating fashion. I believe she lost another 1 or 2 fights, and then she retired. And now she was at the analyst's desk for a little while. I think she has her own podcast, and now she's feeling the hunger to get back in the cage. What do you think, and how do you think she's going to fare against Marion Renault?
So there's a couple things to touch on, right? I think, not to dive too deep into Miesha's history, but Miesha back in the day was with another UFC fighter, with Brian Caraway, and that relationship, from what was visible to the public, didn't really seem like it meshed very well. People like to mess with that kid and call him Mr. Tate and all other kinds of nonsense. And she was frankly more successful in the MMA world than he was. And we don't know what kind of pressure that might have put on her, on the relationship, dealing with that relationship. As adults, we all know what kind of stuff that, relationships have impacts on our work life. And hers is basically going to war on a semi-regular basis. So mental stress, I think she talked about it too in one of her more recent press conferences. Mental stress is really where the issue was. It wasn't the love of the game, but all the issues that were going on were attributed to the MMA game because that's what was going on at the time. And I think she needed that step away, and she needed to kind of get her life together before she makes the jump back. And now she's married or engaged, excuse me, to, I forget this kid's name now, but he was on Tough. And
Johnny Nunez.
Yes. And so she's engaged to him, got a couple of kids. They seem happy as hell. And if you've seen any of the training videos and pictures that she's put up in the last month, that girl looks fantastic. Yeah. She looks ready. That might be physically the best Miesha Tate I've ever seen, period.
Mark, I'll kick it over to Mark and give me your take on the fight. Marion Renault, what does she pose as a threat to Miesha Tate?
Yeah, I'm not going to try to top the Omar Miesha Tate fandom, but it's tough to evaluate the fight because it's just so hard to evaluate fighters who are coming off such long layoffs. Like, I think Tate is 5 since a fight. Like, it's been a while. So
2016.
Yeah, there we go.
Was it UFC 200? Was that the last one?
She lost a UD.
So Raquel was the last one.
In November, late 2016.
Yeah, so like it's a long time.
4.5 years.
We have no idea what this woman is going to look like. Like, she wouldn't be the first fighter to come back and people think, oh, this fighter's back. And then you're like, oh, wow, that dude is washed. Like, why did he come back? In this case, that woman is washed. Yeah. So who knows? But being forced to make a pick, even though it's like it feels impossible because you can't gauge it.
Right.
I don't think I think that they gave her the right kind of matchup for her game. Like, Miesha Tate has a very specific game. Renault has not been impossible to take down. Renault is tough as hell, don't get me wrong. And she's well-rounded too, but she's not impossible to take down. And she doesn't present the kind of danger, like fight-ending danger, I would say, that could give Tate trouble. Mm-hmm. So I think the fight goes as long as it goes, unless Tate is the one that stops it, likely with a submission it would be. But I don't think that she has enough to stop Tate from implementing her game plan if Miesha is close to the best version of herself.
Yeah.
So forced to make a pick, I got to go with Miesha.
Okay. Omar, did you pick?
No.
I did not pick. I am going to go with Miesha as well. I think this fight is very under the radar, and I don't think people realize the significance of the fight. Like, to me, this is the main event as far as I'm concerned. This is my main event for this card. This is Miesha's return. This is a big moment for her. Like I said, she looks fantastic, and she's not coming back to say, hey, I can still do this. She's coming back for somebody's title. She's coming back for gold. It's not a game to her. And I think Marion Renault is...
Amanda Nunes has it.
Yeah, 100%. But to be fair, Amanda Nunes is a beast. Amanda Nunes might still beat her, right? But she will not beat the same Miesha Tate that was in that octagon before. That is a guarantee. It's not going to be the same woman. Whether she wins or loses, it won't be the same woman. And Marion Renault, this is her last fight. There is no after this. There is nothing to lose. She's not even supposed to win this fight. If she goes and beats Miesha Tate, do you ever see that episode of Seinfeld where he tells the joke and he walks out of the office? Like, that's it. That's me. I'm good.
Yeah.
That's Renault right there. Beats Miesha Tate, walks out, sunset. I'm good, baby. No title, but I beat a former world champ. I'm straight.
The odds, interestingly enough, are pretty close. Like, you would have thought she'd be a bigger dog, and I guess the huge layoff is a factor, but Renault is only plus 115, and Tate minus 140. So it's like it's they're giving Renault credit. It's pretty tight.
Yeah, Yeah, it's a great fight, man. It's a great fight. It's super intriguing.
Yeah.
Stylistically, I think it's a fantastic matchup. Renault is dangerous on the ground, but she has a real issue with not wanting to stand back up when she gets on the ground. And that might play a big factor in the way that that fight goes as an entirety. But that doesn't mean that Renault can't choke her out. It's very possible.
For sure.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited, man.
To your point, I did hear her get asked, like, hey, like, Marion, what happens if you beat Misha? Like, wouldn't you want to stick around? And she was like, nope, absolutely not. Like, this is it. Like,
Yeah,
so
man.
she seems very certain that this is it.
That's a hell of a way to leave, man. Beating a former world champ. Peace.
Yeah. That would be great. That would be great. Well, boys, let's wrap this one up. The first episode of And New MMA Show is now in the books after all this time. Give it up. Give it up. If you are still watching this, thank you. We love you so much. Please subscribe to this podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your podcasts. Give us a follow. We are everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm just kidding. We're not on LinkedIn. At and new _ MMA show. That is at and new _ MMA show. Thank you so much.
Hit that like button, baby. Tell your friends.
Yes, sir. And give us some feedback. We're new to this. We love MMA, but we want to hear what you guys think about it. If you guys want to hear more of something, or have any kind of feedback about what we could do better, please let us know. We definitely want to start talking to our fans.
All right. See you next time.
All right, guys.